story, it is the teeny tiny teacher. What is the opposite? Does anybody know the word opposite? No? Okay, I'm going to give you some examples. How about a basketball and a baseball? Do you know which one is bigger? Baseball.
Basketball.
The basketball. Very good. Okay, which one is smaller?
Baseball.
The baseball. Okay, so we would say the opposite of big is small. You guys do know. Oh my goodness, you're so smart. Okay. Huh?
I already knew that.
You already knew that. See, you are so smart. I knew it.
I'm so smart.
Yeah, so this book is about the teeny tiny teacher. So is it going to be about big things?
No.
No.
Little small things.
Small, teeny tiny. Okay, here we go. The teeny tiny teacher. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a teeny tiny teacher who taught in a teeny tiny school in a teeny tiny town. Wow. Do you notice something about this picture? Look at the flowers.
They're big. They're big.
Are they big or yes?
And the roofs are on books and on notebooks.
You noticed that too. I noticed that too.
And a checkerboard.
Uh-huh. So the flowers are actually bigger than the schoolhouse. So this really is a teeny tiny school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that the flowers were trees.
Yeah, they're so tall against that small schoolhouse, yes. One teeny tiny morning, after taking the teeny tiny attendance and singing teeny tiny morning songs, the teeny tiny teacher said, "Who would like to take a teeny tiny walk?" "Me!" cried all the teeny tiny students in their teeny tiny voices. How do you think that would sound if they were all so tiny, tinier?
So tiny.
Like that? Yeah? The teeny tiny students put on their teeny tiny coats and their teeny tiny hats.
And there's a big bird.
Yeah, the bird is bigger than. Yeah, the bird is bigger than the students.
But we're bigger than the bird.
We are. They made two teeny tiny lines. I bet they were very straight like you kindergartners. Holding teeny tiny hands as they walked to a teeny tiny park. Okay. At the teeny tiny park, they found many teeny tiny things. Teeny tiny leaves, teeny tiny sticks.
The golf ball is so big.
That's right. Teeny tiny rocks, teeny tiny feathers, and the teeny tiny teacher found a teeny tiny bone. "I will save this teeny tiny bone for our teeny tiny science lesson," said the teeny tiny teacher to her teeny tiny self. She put the teeny tiny bone in her teeny tiny pocket.
That's a lot of teenies.
It's a lot of teeny tinies. When the teeny tiny class got back to their teeny tiny room, they hung their teeny tiny coats and their teeny tiny hats in the teeny tiny closet. The teeny tiny teacher forgot all about the teeny tiny bone in her teeny tiny pocket. "Who's ready for a teeny tiny snack?" asked the teeny tiny teacher. "We are," said all the teeny tiny students. While the teeny tiny teacher was filling the teeny tiny cups with juice, a teeny tiny voice whispered, "What are you supposed to say now? I just don't know. I'm so excited to find out what's going to happen next." The teeny tiny teacher smiled, thinking a teeny tiny student was playing a teeny tiny trick on her. Do you think it could have been a student? Quite handsome.
No.
Camden.
I think it was a fairy.
A fairy, maybe it is fairy. Let's find out. "Someone is being a teeny tiny bit silly," said the teeny tiny teacher. Then she handed out the teeny tiny cups of juice and passed around teeny tiny cookies. The teeny tiny students were enjoying their teeny tiny snack when the teeny tiny voice said, a teeny tiny bit louder, "Give me my bone."
That's me.
You think? We'll
Yeah.
find out. The teeny tiny students were a teeny tiny bit frightened. They spilled their teeny tiny cups of juice and dropped their teeny tiny cookies all over the teeny tiny floor. "Someone is being more than a teeny tiny bit silly now," said the teeny tiny teacher with her teeny tiny hands on her teeny tiny hips. "Teeny tiny students who have something to say must raise their teeny tiny hands." What did the teacher think? Quiet hands now. What did the teacher think? Yes, Camden.
I think the teacher thinks if it was a talking dog.
A talking dog?
That would be super big.
Wow. Yes, Harlow.
Another teeny tiny teacher.
Maybe it is another teeny tiny teacher. Yes, Amia.
I think it's the teeny tiny dinosaur.
It could be a teeny tiny. Emily.
I think it's her dog actually.
It could be. Okay, we're going to go on now. With her teeny tiny hands on her teeny tiny hips, the teeny tiny students who had something to say must raise their teeny tiny hands. Oh, I already said that part. Sorry. A teeny tiny student raised her teeny tiny hand and said, the teeny tiny voice came from our teeny tiny closet. Teeny tiny closets do not talk, said the teeny tiny teacher. Then she helped her teeny tiny students clean up the teeny tiny rooms. That's interesting. What happened? Where did the voice come from? The closet. Yeah. When the teeny tiny room was a teeny tiny bit tidy, the teeny tiny teacher said, who would like to help me write a teeny tiny story about our teeny tiny walk? Me, all of the teeny tiny students said. They were taking turns retelling the teeny tiny, excuse me, they were taking turns telling the teeny tiny teacher what to write when the teeny tiny closet started to shake and rattle, and the teeny tiny voice called out a teeny tiny bit louder, "Give me my bone." You see the closet shaking?
Yeah. I'm looking at the closet shaking.
Yeah. Now the teeny tiny students and the teeny tiny teacher were a teeny tiny bit frightened. They hid under their teeny tiny desk. They had been hiding just a teeny tiny time when the teeny tiny voice called out a teeny tiny bit louder than before. "Give me my bone." Oh my goodness, this is scary.
I think it's a snake.
It might be.
It might be the person who is teasing me. It might be the witch in the other book.
Possibly. All right.
Maybe.
Okay, we're gonna finish the book now. This made the teeny tiny teacher and her teeny tiny students a teeny bit more frightened. So they hid a teeny tiny bit further under their teeny tiny desk. They were shivering and shaking a teeny tiny bit when the teeny tiny voice called again, a teeny tiny bit louder. "Give me my bone!" Oh my goodness.
They have to open it.
The teeny tiny teacher was not about to let her teeny tiny voice frighten her teeny tiny students another teeny tiny minute. So she popped up from her teeny tiny desk and shouted in her loudest teeny tiny voice, "Take it!" Is that so silly? After that, the teeny tiny teacher and her teeny tiny students never heard the teeny tiny voice again. It looks like a ghost, right?
It is a ghost.
And that is the teeny tiny inn. So what is the ghost doing?
Playing his bone.
Yeah, he's playing with his dog and the bone and the ghost.
The erasers, there's stuff to come on.
Yeah. Isn't that such a great story?
No, it was a scary story because the ghost comes out and then I was so frightened and I said, "Ouch, come
I know, right?
And then I almost fell down. The school almost falls off the mountain.
The school almost, you thought that? Yeah, it might have. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing this great book with me. What do you say when someone says thank you? You say, you're welcome. Let's give Mrs. Lewis a big round of applause. Huh? I'm going to turn it